Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local. Back, everybody, to the Near Memo with David, Mike, and Greg. And today's episode is going to talk specifically about some new research that we released this week on the restaurant vertical in Ireland and whether the SERP changes, the features that Google has introduced into the Irish SERP are having any impact on click behavior or user choices. This is consistent with the Digital Markets Act that Europe has mandated that six companies comply with, and Google is one of the so-called gatekeepers. So they are shaking up the SERP, but we decided to figure out, are these changes having any impact whatsoever? And obviously in the show notes, you'll be able to get to the link where we write up the research which we released. So David, why don't you take it away, since you're the sort of MC here today?
Sure. Well, and just I should note as an aside, we chose Ireland because it is in the EU and it's English speaking, which made our sort of removed the language barrier from our research exercise. I'm also a huge fan of the country, and so it was actually very fun to see some of these searches happening from towns that I'd actually been to. But so let's kind of set the stage. We used our pretty similar framework to what we do for clients in terms of investigating how they should be positioning their GBP, their website, whether they should be investing in ads, what kinds of ads they should be investing in. We've been doing this market research now for just over a year for clients, and we decided with the rollout of the DMA changes from Google, hey, wouldn't this be an interesting test kind of in the wild without a client to see kind of what user behavior was. So we don't necessarily have a before and after here, although we do have ambition to test this in Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK and not subject to this Digital Markets Act, and see what the differences in behavior truly are. But the big takeaway here, from my standpoint, is that most of the UI changes that Google has rolled out, including the Places Sites module, where they essentially are reserving a space. You can think of it almost like the Hidden Gems module or the People Also Ask module. It is a distinct element in the SERP where Google is featuring primarily local directories like TripAdvisor, OpenTable, Yelp in restaurants, as well as a couple of sort of content websites, critic websites, right, talking about restaurants. And so this module that they've introduced, the big takeaway for me is essentially that module gets almost no engagement, even when it's present. And it was only visible to searchers when we were watching their recorded sessions. It was only visible to searchers about 60% of the time. So the reason for that essentially is that the pack, especially on mobile, is still largely in the number one position, and very few people scrolled far enough down, either on their mobile phone or on the desktop, to even see this new module. So let me just set the stage. That was kind of the takeaway. Let me just set the stage for kind of what the exercise was. We presented 100 Irish consumers with this prompt, sort of put them in a scenario that they've had a tough week at work. They're looking forward to blowing off some steam with some coworkers on Friday afternoon, Friday evening, and they're looking for a restaurant to kind of, just kind of celebrate the end of the week with their coworkers, and that they go to Google to kind of help them find a place that they haven't been to before. So that was basically a very open-ended prompt, and we asked them essentially just to perform this search and narrate their experience with the results. And we then aggregated the behaviors that they demonstrated, as well as made notes about certain comments that they made in order to come up with this report.
And what particular behaviors and variables did we track, just so people understand that?
Sure. So we were looking at, did they engage with Google Business Profile results, directory results? Did they click on the Places Sites module? How many people mentioned that they were, convinced by reviews and ratings? They were interested in a particular kind of food. They liked the photos. They liked the look and feel of a place. So those are the kinds of behaviors we're kind of tracking. And then we would then aggregate behind the scenes kind of, okay, this person, was drawn in by the pack. The pack was in a certain position. They did or didn't click through to the business website, and sort of standardize the reporting of those behaviors.
Mike, let me just ask you a quick question since you did a write up of these things, just so people understand. There were a number of new or changed features that Google introduced in addition to the Places Sites module. Could you just give us a quick rundown of what those are?
Sure. So the Places Sites module is a carousel of independent directories with an image. And then they also introduced a Places Site refinement chip. This is a little round button at the top of the search results so that somebody could go from organic into a list of these sites, or go from places into a places site, or from places sites to places. So it's a way to facet the search result, although we found very little interaction with that. And then there's um, an aggregator carousel rich result. So OpenTable or TripAdvisor, if they had a schema compliant with Google's requirements, would get a carousel organic result. And in addition to that, there was the multi-directory review summary. So rather than just summarizing Google reviews, if you click the Google review stars, you would be brought to typically Google reviews plus a third-party directory option on the reviews. And
within the Google Business Profile, within the knowledge
within the
panel
Google
for the
Business
business.
Profile, right? And that one might show either in the profile, or if you did a profile search, a brand search, it might show in the SERPs, but typically associated with the profile. And that's it. So those elements. And then they move around based on, well, Chip does it, that's at the top, but the Places Site aggregator unit moves based on consumer interactions. So over time, as they interact with it less or more, it'll move down, typically down in the results. Because we first started looking, it was right at the top, and then over the next week or two, it moved down to position 2 or 3. And then
And
the other change, which I find fascinating, is that there is a second local pack on the first page. So there's the main local pack, which includes an option to view other businesses, and then a second local pack that, depending on the query, might show towards the bottom of the first page, but it might also show in position 2 or 3. So you might see literally 2 packs run right on top of the other. And that's a feature that I've looked all over the world. It's not in the United States. It is in the UK, but only on the second page, never on the first page. And then in the EU, it's a new feature where Google has now 2 packs on the first page, which I found interesting. Oh, sorry.
no, that's what I was hoping you would elaborate on.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.